Welcome to Washington Policy on the Go, Washington Policy Center podcast of news, interviews, and policy analysis.
Let me bring Paul into it from the Washington Policy Center. What's your perspective on this in terms of, my frustration as I was watching this as a policy person from a federal perspective is I instantly started thinking through some of the pressure points that we have at the federal level. What does that look like for you here on the ground in Seattle?
Yeah, great point. So first I'll say thank you to the Heritage Foundation for having this forum. We as a state-based think tank get a huge amount of professional and quality support from groups like the Heritage Foundation. And that actually strengthens us when we're dealing with an often hostile policy environment or a tough media who are very much against family-based conservative principles. And I just wanted to say early on that as a state think tank, the fact that we're able to point to the Heritage Foundation, use their research, just really gives us a good base for dealing with that tough environment. So on to the answer to your question, we believe, again, I think conservatives believe in learning from history and they believe in ancient wisdom. So principles that have endured through the years. And I think what really illustrates this is if you were to travel to Siena, Italy, in the medieval town hall that they still use is a big fresco that was painted in the 1300s. And the theme of the fresco is the allegory of bad government and the allegory of good government. So if a community could understand this in the Middle Ages, it seems that Seattle should be able to figure it out. And I think that is really at the heart of what we're talking about here tonight. And I live in the city. I'm a native of Seattle. I'm raising a family there. So to actually watch, day to day, both in my neighborhood and throughout the city, this breakdown of community standards and the complete inability of the elected leadership to deal with it. It's not like they don't have resources. They spend over $200 million a year on homeless programs. So
what's the pivot point? What is the difference between, in the documentary, he talked about this downward slide that has happened. Can you identify for us where that kind of started happening?
Yeah, well, it's been around for a number of decades. Again, another illustration is Seattle had in 2005 the 10-year plan to end homelessness. So countywide. So where this comes from is a deep misunderstanding of how to solve the problem, which is driven by a radical leftist ideology that doesn't see a homeless person as, needing services, needing and being held accountable for their behavior and helped. And where a community basically says a standard, back to my point about the allegory of good government, is, we're not going to allow you to hurt yourself, to live this way. It's bad for you, it's bad for the community. And if your heart really goes out to someone as a neighbor in the community, you would do something about that, like your point about in San Francisco. Why doesn't someone intervene and do something? I'm pretty confident that if there were no government, that people would be helping, either through private charity or your neighbor or a church or whatever. Maybe that wouldn't be adequate, but the desire would be there to help. Instead, we have the government, which the mayor, the city council, the service organizations, who say that they're going to tackle this problem, and then their faulty ideology, I would say, prevents them from pursuing strategies that actually work. So I think that's the heart of the problem.
Thanks for listening to Washington Policy on the Go. If you liked it, tell a friend and share this episode on your social media. Send any questions or comments to us at washingtonpolicy@washingtonpolicy.org.